He's now been elected unopposed. And as I said earlier, without a vote, single vote being cast by anybody, not in the Parliament and not in the party. He and Boris Johnson hadn't spoken since Sunak's resignation as Chancellor, but they met on Saturday night for 2.5 hours and failed to reach any agreement. My information is that Boris Johnson did have the 100 parliamentary members required to go into a runoff, but, as I said last night, he also faced a hearing before the Parliamentary Privileges Committee, and it was reported that members of number 10 Downing Street would have given evidence against him in relation to Mr Johnson's birthday party in the middle of COVID, and that would have made his resumed prime ministership untenable. It'll be interesting to see how Rishi Sunak holds up, because he also was part of the Partygate scandal, but was fined and given a fixed penalty notice from the police. He was also investigated in 2020 concerning the timing of the declaration of his family's $3 billion shareholding in the family company. He was cleared of any ministerial impropriety. At the same time, it was revealed that his wife had legally avoided paying about $35 million in British tax by paying an annual fee of $50,000 to maintain a non-domiciled status in the country. That controversy led Mrs Sunak to issue a statement saying she would pay UK taxes on her global income. Rishi Sunak fought Liz Truss on the tax issue, but as Chancellor, he raised corporation taxes from 19 to 25%. But we come back to the statements I alluded to earlier by the former Governor of the Bank of England and government responses to coronavirus. Many of Rishi Sunak's critics argue that the country's economic woes stem from him splashing around money during the pandemic. That unaccounted billions was spent on unnecessary personal protection equipment. And then, of course, on top of all that, his plans for a Greens tax. Sounds like Australia. Nonetheless, this is an extraordinary development. A man heads the 6th largest economy in the world. He's only 42. He's been in Parliament only 7 years. And his resignation from Cabinet triggered the exodus of about 60 members of the Johnson ministry, and Boris Johnson was gone. It could easily be argued that it was he who forced Boris Johnson out and the consequent mess in the Conservative Party. Now he faces an electorate confronting rising inflation, increased costs of borrowing, and an energy crisis. In Britain, so it is in Australia. How does Rishi Sunak, with all his academic credentials, address the financial crisis of debt? Then there's net zero. Boris Johnson, having written powerfully and persuasively against the net zero nonsense, submitted to the influence of his wife and went green all over. Will Rishi Sunak break from that policy? Because implementing it is unaffordable. That's why Britain, like Australia, faces an energy crisis. As Greg Sheridan splendidly wrote today, will Rishi be able to tell everyone that Daddy can't afford the Christmas presents after all? Reality has a way of asserting itself.